Sid and Friends in the Morning. 77 WABC.
I can tell you I'm looking forward to this. Jonathan Turley, I'm a huge fan. He's never been on this show before. I don't know how that's the case, but it's true. He's got a new book out. It's called The Indispensable Right, Free Speech in an Age of Rage. John Turley, welcome to Sid and Friends in the Morning, buddy. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Nice to have you. I want to start with the Baldwin stuff. It's the biggest news in the courtroom, I guess, coming up again today. Yesterday, the defense said he was an actor acting. And the prosecution said, no. He was reckless and somebody died. In the end, which one is it going to be? Was he just an actor acting?
You know, I was surprised when the court granted a defense motion that said that the jury would not be informed that Baldwin was not just an actor, but one of the producers. That strikes me as being a very significant fact. As a producer, he is responsible for many of these protocols. Ultimately, the set is his to run, maintain, keep safe. So I was astonished by the judge's decision that the jury wouldn't be informed of that. The problem that Baldwin has going into this is that he set his defense within the first few minutes of his speaking with police when he said that, and then he went publicly and said this in an interview, that he never pulled the trigger. That's going to be a very hard thing for the defense to get over because if the jury focuses on that, they're not going to believe him. I mean, they're going to have experts that just say, look, it didn't magically go off. He obviously did pull the trigger. He did pull back the hammer. And if they focus on that credibility issue, they may not hear the rest of this stuff. Look, this is an act of negligence. I've never been one of those, clamoring for the guy to be convicted and sent to prison. I'm not a big fan of his. But I think that his laying out that defense, I can tell you as a criminal defense attorney, would be a nightmare for me.
Yeah. I mean, the armorer already got into trouble. You would think that's the person who loaded the gun, I guess. I don't know. But you would think that would be the person that would be in more trouble than Alec, because even though you're right, Alec was a producer, he should be aware the actual gun belonged, at least that responsibility really belonged to the armorer. You can make that defense, yes?
Yeah, I think you can. And the problem, though, is that it was indeed the producers that I think hold a lot of responsibility, because the set had had a litany of problems. They had had labor issues. They had had safety issues. It was a very lackadaisical set when it came to standards and safety. All of that gets laid at the feet of the producers. They're ultimately the ones that are supposed to, bring all that into order. And so, I think that dual role of his should have been known to the jury.
Yeah. That's fair. Alec Baldwin does face up to 18 months in prison if convicted. But, John, I'm with you. He doesn't do a day of jail time, just like Donald Trump. He's not going to do a day of jail time either. But getting back to Trump for a second here, that SCOTUS decision, 6-3, really win for Trump about presidential immunity. I don't know about you, John, but I was really disappointed with Sotomayor. I understand. I get it. She's a lefty, but she's on the bench. She cannot be out there with these ridiculous scenarios about killing people and bribing people. I mean, I really thought for a very, very bright lady, and I'm very, very hesitant to criticize, Supreme Court justices. She came out as a clown last week. You disagree?
Well, I was very disappointed in that dissent as well. I thought that it ignored express statements in the majority opinion. She was referring to things that the majority had already discounted, had already exempted essentially from their decision. And she misrepresented the majority opinion. I mean, look, everyone's hair caught on fire in the media, and they started to say things that are absurd, but some people may believe them. You have Rachel Maddow going on saying, there'll be death squads. This is a death squad ruling. Well, most of us just sort of roll our eyes and move on, but there will be people out there who believe that. They will actually believe that that's what the court did. It's as far as you could possibly get from what the court did. The court created 3 different categories for cases, one in which you have absolute immunity. Those are for core constitutional issues. one in which you have a presumption that can be overcome. That's for the vast majority of official functions. And then there's the third of unofficial conduct where you have no protection. That's not a death squad ruling. No. That's finding the middle road.
Right.
But when it comes to these cases, it was a 1-2 punch. They first got hit with Fisher in terms of the special counsel that said you can't use obstruction claims, which is half his case in D.C. And then they got the haymaker on immunity. And the result, I think, is that they tore the wings off Jack Smith's case. The question is what he's going to do in D.C., and we're all waiting.
Hi, it's Lou Dobbs for Priority Gold, America's precious metals dealer. These are volatile times with high inflation, soaring debt, wars on multiple continents, and rising financial stress. Central banks are buying gold to diversify their reserves, so are many Americans. Call Priority Gold and find out how precious metals can help you diversify your portfolio. They're highly rated and happy to help. Call 1-866-303-6357 or get a free gold guide at PriorityGoldGuide.com. That's PriorityGoldGuide.com.
He got nothing. That's what he's got to do, John Turley. I mean, a year ago, I was talking to people like George Napolitano, Tacopina, Aidala, and they were scared to death for Trump. And over the last year, it's becoming increasingly obvious with Fani Willis, her performance in Georgia with Nathan Wade, with this immunity decision, with this ridiculous, Letitia James, all these trials, all of them are about to go away. Again, for people that were really nervous a year ago, John, it is collapsing right in front of their eyes, yes?
Well, I think a lot of it has collapsed. There's still some torpedoes in the water. We don't know what's going to happen. If he's elected, the federal cases could well never see a jury. The Georgia case, I don't see how you can possibly resurrect it, but they're going to try. And as for that Manhattan case, I think that there's layers of reversible error. And eventually, I hope it will also be reversed.
So what is the one for you that what's the biggest torpedo in the water right now?
Well, I think Mar-a-Lago has always been the most serious claim, but that's where Jack Smith really blew it. He's always had a problem with his appetite. He does not respect limits. He always pushes the envelope. And what he should have done if he was smart was just to have brought the obstruction claim. He could have gone to trial by now. But instead, he loaded up on these classification claims. And so I don't think he'll get to trial. But that has always been the most dangerous of the cases.
Got it. Let me get to this book. I know you got to run by 8. The Indispensable Right, Jonathan Turley, Free Speech in an Age of Rage. Trump is always saying nobody loves free speech more than me. I disagree. I do. I mean, I know you don't listen to this show every day, but believe me when I tell you, I take this thing right to the edge. I mean, I've done that for 25 years. That's how I made my bones in this career. I don't pull punches, and at times people go, how are you still on the air? And I'm okay with that. I'm all for it, and I always was all for it. Until I saw these pro-Palestinians take over all these cities, including mine. Now, I'm Jewish. There's a bias there. There's no question about it. But all of a sudden, for me, freedom of speech is kind of hazy. Tell me about the book and your thoughts on what I just said.
Well, the book has really been 30 years in the making. I didn't want to just write another free speech book. The book looks at why we're still struggling with free speech. And it describes how this is the most dangerous anti-free speech movement in our history. And it's because we have never seen an alliance of corporations, the media, academia, the government, all aligning against free speech. And the book goes through all of the personalities and periods that shaped our views of free speech. But we've never faced what we have today. And the book says, look, I think it's undeniable in my view that Joe Biden is the most anti-free speech president since John Adams. I mean, he has created an unprecedented censorship system. But the interesting thing about this movement, this anti-free speech movement, which is coming from higher education, it has taken hold in Europe, where free speech is in a free fall, is that it's not a popular movement in the United States. It's coming from higher education, it's coming from the media, it's coming from the establishment. But citizens don't like it. Polls show that citizens do not want censorship. It's in our DNA as Americans. And this book sort of explores why free speech is different here and why we have to have an awakening to get citizens to draw the line on our shore, because this wave from Europe is now hitting the United States. And we have to hold firm or we will lose something that defines us as a people.
I agree. And again, I freedom of speech 100%. But don't you agree, John, that again, going back to these pro-Palestinian marches, there's other examples the last couple of years, even the BLM stuff. Don't you agree that we've seen some things the last couple of years that make you think twice about how perfect and pure freedom of speech is?
No, I don't, because you actually can enforce these laws. What you want to do is you want to enforce the laws on conduct, not on speech. They can say anything they want, but when they engage in conduct that is unlawful, setting up occupation zones, taking over buildings, threatening people, individuals, faculty, and students, that's conduct.
Yeah, but wait a second. But it's speech. I mean, when a guy stands on the train and says, raise your hand if you're a Zionist, he hasn't touched anybody, but I can tell you there were people I knew on that train that were scared to death. That's not freedom of speech, John.
Yeah, there are areas where that falls under conduct, where you threaten people in that train. Those are actual people that you're directly threatening. It's not that speech can't be a crime. It's just that it has to be articulated so that it's trying to commit an act. In that case, he was trying to target people on that train to get them to leave. And there's a host of laws that prevent that. We can draw these lines without, eroding free speech.
Fair enough. Listen, I love you on Fox News. I really appreciate you coming on today. I hope you come back all the time. The book is The Indispensable Right, Free Speech in an Age of Rage. Jonathan Turley. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you for having me.
You got it, pal. Jonathan Turley right there.
Hi, it's Lou Dobbs for Priority Gold, America's precious metals dealer. These are volatile times with high inflation, soaring debt, wars on multiple continents, and rising financial stress. Central banks are buying gold to diversify their reserves, so are many Americans. Call Priority Gold and find out how precious metals can help you diversify your portfolio. They're highly rated and happy to help. Call 1-866-303-6357 or get a free gold guide at PriorityGoldGuide.com. That's PriorityGoldGuide.com.